That's wrong.
Oh, can you edit that part out?
This goes on the internet.
Not the part where I injected it.
Her art
Should we
is
stop
not
it and like
as-
rewind it, just make sure that it's recording something? Or no?
I think it's good. Check,
Is it
check,
going?
one.
Yeah, it's all the little
It's
dials are
recording.
going
Do the sign.
Huh?
Okay, now we're gonna start,
Speed.
Laura's gonna
What
back
was
up
your
and give her question
Yeah,
again.
it was a very interesting question.
Okay. You mentioned last night in your lecture about one of your sisters who expressed interest in being a physician and was kind of steered away from that idea. When my mom was looking for a career, she was given the options of nun, nurse, teacher, and secretary. And she felt very lucky that she had a passion for education and that's what she wanted to do. So I was wondering if you had similar feelings and maybe your feelings on the possibilities open to women today when they look
Well,
for a
I
career.
start with the possibilities open to women today. I have a niece who's an engineer, right, and works for a big construction company, and actually sometimes honchos the whole job. And I have a daughter who's a lawyer, which, you know, the funny thing is, when you think about women who get higher degrees and do things like law or medicine or whatever, at the end of the first wave of the women's movement, a lot of women were doing that. And so it was just this interim. You don't, you know, if we knew our history, it was just the interim between getting the vote, right, and the second wave of the women's movement, that women started to feel they were restricted to nursing, teaching. And I don't, you know, I don't believe in conspiracies, but it just happened. Let's just put it that way, it happened. Yeah, I felt very, and my sister and I still talk about it a lot. My younger sister is the one who became a nurse, and she was totally capable, as much as my father or my grandfather was, of becoming a physician. And it was more than just saying, you know, it was not for, he didn't say, I'm not paying for your college if you go to med school. It wasn't like that, but it was when your parents tell you something that, you know, you'll be unhappy, you won't be able to be a superwoman. I mean, I know that they did it for the best of reasons. They could not envision a woman being a physician on call 12 hours a day, and also being a wife and a mother, right? Myself, I think I mentioned in the speech, I didn't, because I chose art, and like you were talking about, that seemed to be appropriate for a woman. I mean, at least she can, you know, paint on Sundays at home, right? That there was never any, in fact, the only time I got real resistance is when my husband and I got married, and my father said, you're an artist and he's a philosopher, how in heaven's name are you going to support yourselves? But we didn't let that stop us, and somehow we survived it all. So sometimes you can do the impossible. So your mother became a teacher?
Yes, she did. She's been teaching for over 30 years. She's teaching 3rd grade right now.
Okay.
And she is a wonderful teacher. She's my mentor and my inspiration.
That's great. That's great. So you actually feel you're following in her footsteps. Did
I
you
would-
get any advice from your parents about your career?
Yes, I did. From my father, I heard you're going to be a teacher, and then, oh, you're going to be an art teacher on top of it. How are you going to support yourself? That's what I heard from my father, but he is very supportive aside from that.
Mhm.
And my mother is thrilled that I would like to be a teacher, but in all of my college education, she's asked me repeatedly, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And she says, because if I don't have the passion for it, then I don't belong in education, because that's how education gets to a state that it can sometimes be in. And I feel lucky when I am in a classroom that I want to be there, so I'm looking forward to being back in one.
That's great. That's wonderful to know what it is you want to do. I think a lot of people choose majors who have no idea what they want to do, but it's time to choose. You just choose, so you're very fortunate if it's something you care about, you know.
My question is kind of related. I was interested because I kind of familiarized with what you were talking about last night when you said that when you decided to go back and finish your degree, but you changed it to art education instead of finishing with the studio art. And you mentioned how before you'd always thought of art education as sort of like a sellout. I was wondering how in your mind you sort of came to peace with that idea, that notion, because I feel like that's still something that is alive and well, even in our building, like
Right.
the difference between
Oh,
being
sure,
a
the
studio art
status.
major and an art education major.
Well, one of the reasons is that it suddenly, when I talked about everything sort of falling into place, it dawned on me immediately that the reason that I thought that art ed was a sellout was because teaching is a more feminine, especially at the lower levels, is a feminine identified activity. And that if it's been given low status, I wasn't going to put up with that, just, you know, because just to say anything that a woman does is automatically, or that a woman does well is automatically of lower cultural status is something I thought had to be challenged. But on a more practical level, I have found that I couldn't sustain my artistic aspirations on my own in a home setting. And a lot of women can, but I couldn't. I mean, I was too distracted with children and with whatever was going on. And I never did have enough, we always said we're one bedroom short from what you might need to have anything that was like a studio. So to me, it was very, I think I mentioned, it's very important that I get out in the public world and get a paycheck, because all the things that women did, and I think it's work as much as it's, you know, just work of equal value to what men did. Many of those things that you don't get paid for. And art, the way I was practicing it, was just one more of those things, right? So it was important for me to get some sort of validation that that I could hold down a job, that I could get it. In fact, the first paycheck I got, I didn't come home, I went to the bank, and I guess maybe a lot of people do this, but I asked them, when I cashed it, I said I want it all at once. And I just came home and just sort of, this is ridiculous, but I did, just sort of floated them all over the house. You know, just, for you, for you, for you. So,
20 of
we-
them?
I think it was like 35.
35.
Right. So there were two reasons I went in. Plus, I love children, and I, you know, had my own. I felt I had some experience. I will say that one regret I have, because I have this collapse kind of career, that I did not spend more time actually teaching in the public schools. Right? I mean, mine was, and it just happened that way. I planned to do that. But then somebody got tired of teaching art ed at UK, threw their briefcase up against the wall and walked out in the middle of the semester, and I had been a reliable graduate student, and I just had got my master's, so they asked me to come and teach those classes. And one thing led to another, and I ended up almost stepping from getting my degree into college teaching with, so that I know that I lacked the classroom experience, except vicariously I've been a student. And hi.
Might be our time.
Should I
Shall we?
join you, or should I
Sure.
stay out?
Yeah.
You're welcome. This is my husband, Clint Collins.
Hi.
And I,
Carry
is
on,
it
sorry.
going on?
It's okay.
It's probably out of time. Maybe it's time for us to wrap it up, huh?
Sure.
You have a lot of good questions.
I don't want to wrap it up.
Mhm.
Let's see. Do you have any final thoughts for them?
Just, you know, I think you have a very exciting program here. I mean, to have the turnout of students that came to the lecture last night and so forth, just shows a lot of vitality. And again, I would encourage you, if you can, do you have a student organization?
Yes.
Yeah, does,
They have a student chapter of NAEA.
okay. And what do you do with that? Do you actually meet or have bake sales?
They're having an
They're
art
art
auction.
auction.
An art auction,
Um,
okay.
Mhm.
Right now, but they do everything from bake sales
Yeah.
to art auctions. They've sold things, printmaking, wrapping paper and selling that. I mean, they've done we've had people go, as many as 6 attend a national conference before.
Okay.
Denver
Oh.
just seems, I guess, a little
A little too
overwhelming
far.
to some of them, and maybe the price of that, but, I think we took 6 to Chicago.
Mhm.
And as we look at, now with NAEA letting us know ahead of time where we're
Where
going to
they're
be
gonna be.
next, that'll be a great help to our student organization, because it might take sometimes it might take more than a semester to save up for something like that, to fundraise and things. They do have very heavy schedules, and so it is hard. If we don't catch people right away at the beginning of the semester and get them involved, other things take up their time.
What we
Right.
usually did is raise money for the Ohio
To go to
Art Ed
OAEA.
Conference, and then
Mhm.
we actually had 5 of our students in NAEA present at the Ohio Conference last
That's great.
fall, which is
Mhm.
great.
Like,
So-
did you present the research you've done at these
No,
conferences?
I haven't. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe once I get a job here. in Ohio.
Well, sometimes the way you get a job is to go to a conference and present,
Yeah.
Mhm.
They look for people at the conferences when they're looking for someone to hire. They go to the conference and go to the presentations and
They
look
used
you
to-
over.
Yeah, they
If
used
they're
to-
looking at the university level, they do the same thing. They follow you around sometimes they follow you for a year or 2 of conferences and to see if they wanna ask you to apply, don't they?
Mhm. They used to call conferences meat markets, because you go there and they can look you over for jobs, right? The NAA used to have a big office where you could go and sign up saying you were looking for a job, and the places that were looking to recruit, and I think they've dropped that in recent years.
But they interview
But, yeah.
they'll be interviewing, Coonstown will be interviewing, there's, I think, 2 positions at Coonstown, Pennsylvania. And I'm sure they'll interview at NAEA, there's always someone interviewing somebody over there.
Right. So don't hesitate, if you've done some research and you wanna share it, find a way to do it.
It's getting, that process of, they're accepting proposals even now. Everything has gotten earlier, which is really wonderful.
Don't they have something at NAE called roundtables,
Yes,
where, like, a group of you, you'd all be sitting at the same table and you just have very short presentations
Presentations,
of
like 10
whatever
minutes.
research you're doing.
and
And
people ask questions.
people wander around and sit down at your table, and it's kind of a neat thing, and it's basically for students or
Mm-hmm.
young professionals. Okay, well, I've really enjoyed visiting with you all.
And we wanna thank you very much for being here. I know that they got a lot out of